Okay, hi. So I haven't been here for a while, so hi. I am turning 30 in a few weeks. And I just decided to I wanted to make a fun video. So there's all these lists on the internet. And I really never go to lists, especially from large public like magazines, newspapers, like that type of thing, to get my books that I read. But I always find it interesting how they're curated. So, you'll see lists of 30 books you should read before you turn 30, which is really just a load of hogwash. There's some books that are catered towards a certain audience and a certain group of people at a certain stage of their life. So, I can think of The Defining Decade as a nonfiction that is literally about being in your 20s and that being your defining decade. So reading it when you're in your 30s or 40s isn't really going to be helpful for you. So I can understand that, but do you really have to read Jane Eyre before you turn 30? I don't think so. But I still think it'll be fun to see if I've read any of them on the list. So we will get started. Okay. So the first list I'm going to do is, this one specifically catered towards women, 30 books every woman should tick off her reading list before turning 30. And it's Marie Claire. So because it's female oriented and it's by, I don't really actually know what Marie Claire does. I'm assuming it's fashion and stuff. I'm so out of touch. I'm going to guess that the list is going to be relatively modern and feminist reads. So there's a chance I'll have read some, maybe. Okay, so the first one is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. I have read this. I haven't read it for years. It was required reading when I was in high school, and I've actually read And Then the Mountains Echoed more recently and really loved that. So first one I've read, Call Me by Your Name by Andre Ackerman. This is, I haven't read it, but I'm pretty sure it's a queer, coming of age story, a first love between two men. My Body Keeps Your Secrets by Lucia Osborne Crowley. I haven't actually heard of this. This book is a searing, heart-shattering, and gripping recount of how the female and non-binary body is impacted by trauma. Okay, so is this a memoir? Okay, no, it's more of a nonfiction. Interesting. Okay, that actually sounds interesting. A Man Called Uwe by Frederick Bachman. I don't know why. I'm not sure why this list is catered at women, since most of the protagonists of these books haven't been women. I don't know. I have read A Man Called Uwe. I liked it at the time, but I've read a lot of Frederick Bachman, and I, maybe unpopular opinion, I find him to be kind of a one-trick pony, and him to have a very distinct writing style and a very distinct type of character that he writes, and I found his books a bit boring and repetitive after a while, so I haven't read him in a few years. The Little Prince, yeah, this is a kid's classic. I have not read it. The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Okay, yeah, I have read this. I've actually read it twice in high school, and I hated it both times. So, cool. Okay, yep, we're getting classics on here. The Great Gatsby. I have read this. Again, it was in high school. I remember enjoying it enough, but what about this says, as a woman, I had to have read this before I turned 30? I don't know. The Panic Years by Nell Frizzell. This is the book I tell every single one of my girlfriends who's asking herself if she should have kids to read. Yeah, haven't read this. Dates, Doubts, and the Mother of All Decisions. Oh, I don't know if I want to read that. I don't really like thinking about that topic too much. Anyway, Heartburn by Nora Ephron. I've also not heard of. Before Dolly Alderton, there was Nora Ephron. Yeah, it doesn't really say, again, why someone in their 30s should have read this, or I guess someone in their 20s. Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. It seems every woman and their bestie has read, recommended, and adored this read. Relatable in a way that fiction never truly can be, but the storytelling lure of a page-turning novel. Dolly recounts the pain, joy, and everything in between that comes with navigating love, heartbreak, friendship, and work and sex in your 20s. I haven't even heard of this. Okay, next one. The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I mean, I have read this. It's in academia, like a university academia, so like I don't really think it's like catered towards people within academia, but it does have like younger characters, like characters in their early 20s. So you have like a younger cast. I remember finding it to be okay at the time, but like nothing all that special. My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh. I have read this. I love this book. I feel like of the ones I've seen on this list, it makes like the most sense to me. Not in terms of you have to read it, but it's like, this is on the list for people like of my generation, though I think everyone can enjoy it. It's following a millennial who like kind of just decides like she's like not gonna like do the rat race anymore and just like becomes a homebody and does a lot of drugs. Like it's like not like a dream for people, but it's like this like drugged fantasy of like I just want to pretend the world doesn't exist. But yeah, I actually really liked this book. Between Two Kingdoms, a memoir of life interrupted. Between Two Kingdoms. It sounds like it has like religious connotations. They say that only certain thing in life is uncertainty, and this is something that nails concept on the head perfectly. Suleika was diagnosed with leukemia at age 22 and spent the next 5 years inside hospital walls undergoing invasive treatments and wondering if it was all even worth it. By the time she went into remission at age 27, she had forgotten what it felt like to actually live her life. While most of us can't relate to that degree, feeling directionless in your 20s is something we can all understand. I haven't heard of this book, so obviously I haven't read it. I wouldn't say I ever really felt directionless in my 20s, but that's okay. High Fidelity by Nick Hornby. I have read this. I don't really like Nick Hornby. It has that like vibe of so a lot of these books are like people in their 20s that like don't really like are in dead-end jobs, don't really know what they're doing with their life. Like maybe being in your 20s reading a book about people in their 20s makes it more relatable, but like High Fidelity is absolutely a book I would not tell women in their 20s to read. You also follow a man in his 30s, like that's the main character. This list is weird, man. It does not make sense. Okay, 1984 by George Orwell. I have read that. I mean, like, I think everyone knows what 1984 is about. Gotta have some classics on the list, I guess. Burnout by Emily and Amelia Nagoski. This must be a nonfiction. Okay, it's a nonfiction about what burnout means. So again, being in your 20s, like having a job that burns you out. An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. I have read this as well. I liked it, but I didn't really love it. I don't really have much to say about it. Three Women by Lisa Taddeo. That cover just screams like it came out in the past few years. Like something about fruit. I don't know. It's rare that a work of nonfiction reads like fiction. Oh, this is a nonfiction? That's actually surprising. This one follows the lives of three very different women as they navigate everything from love and sex to careers and health. The Barefoot Investor by Scott Pape. A personal finance book. Okay, I guess that makes sense. Okay. Invisible Women by Caroline Criado Perez. Exposing data bias in a world designed for men. I have heard of this. I haven't read it. I've heard that it's really like the data it looks at and the women like that get embodied within this text are just like cis women. So because of that, I don't have as much of an interest in reading it. But I guess it does make sense, like as a book on this list, understanding how women are invisible in data because they aren't within a lot of the data sets that are used, which I guess, that's not just true of women, since white men really make up the bolus of most of the way the world caters to people, making them like the average. So I guess that makes sense. Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow. This is definitely a nonfiction. I haven't read this. Eye-opening account of the investigation and eventual exposure of the Harvey Weinstein alleged rape and sexual assault of multiple women. Okay, yeah, Me Too movement. I can see why this made it on the list in the past few years. Eggshell Skull by Bree Lee, a memoir about standing up, speaking out, and fighting back. I haven't read that. Lots of memoirs on the list. I guess I should have expected that. We're all aware that Australia has a major problem in the prosecution of sexual assault, but unfortunately it's far from an easy one to fix. Okay, so it's looking at sexual assault in the justice system of Australia. Lord of the Flies. I don't think there's a female character in this book, but every woman should read it before they turn 30. I have read it. I read it in high school. I reread it, and I didn't like it the second time either. And I reread it when I was like an adult. Okay, Men Who Hate Women, the extremism nobody is talking about. I haven't read it. Oh yeah, Jane Austen, here we go. Northanger Abbey. I haven't read this. I've only read one Jane Austen. I've read Emma, but this would probably be my next one on my list just based on like the reviews I've seen. The Great Believers by Rebecca Mackay. I've also heard of this and haven't read it. Set between 1980s Chicago and modern day Paris. Follows a group of friends navigating the AIDS crisis and the impact it continued to have on survivors decades later. What My Mother and I Don't Talk About by Michelle Filgate. 15 Writers Break the Silence. Okay, yeah, another like memoir style, maybe essay collection. How to Murder Your Life by Kat Marnell. I haven't read this. I haven't heard of this. Is this a nonfiction? Like, the cover doesn't really have me. Yeah, it's a memoir, covers her time working as a beauty editor at one of America's biggest magazines and her struggle with addiction and eating disorder and other items. Bridget Jones' Diary by Helen Fielding. I also have not read this, but it was pretty popular back in the day. I've never seen the movies either. The New Me by Hallie Butler. I feel like I might have this book on my Goodreads TBR. I picked up this book because it was described by someone on Goodreads as great for taking comfort in the absurd misery of someone else's life. Okay, yeah, I'm into that. I could see why I have that on my list. Oh, that was the end. Okay, so I'll put my counter up. I probably haven't read a lot of these. I didn't really expect myself to, and I also don't hold my standard of having to read a book by a certain age. So this is all for good fun. That's it. I just wanted to get on and have a little fun, look through some lists, laugh at some books, and yeah. So until next time, happy reading.